everyone, and welcome to this episode of our LLE podcast. My name is Sarah, and I'm your host. And I'm very excited to announce that we have a new host in this episode.
Hi, I'm Joshua. I'm the new host. I'm a psychology student at Middlesex, so you'll see me around. And yeah, I'm excited to be the new host to have some fun.
And we're very happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I'm also very happy to announce that today's guest is Dr. Sweta, Senior Lecturer at Middlesex University. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm honored to be part of this transition and the new expertise happening here.
No, we are honored to have you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Doctor, tell me a bit about yourself, your journey. How did you end up doing Middlesex? And yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sure. I'm happy to share my journey, which was a little bit of a diverted way of coming here, but I'm very happy with the way everything took the turns and the twists. So basically, I was in the UK and I was pursuing my own higher education. I did my undergraduate. I very soon followed on with my master's.
What degree did you do?
When I was at sorry, it's not
It's
very
okay.
well. I was at Imperial College doing my mathematics,
Oh.
and then I went immediately on to Brunel University with their masters in mathematical modeling. So I started to get an interest in applied mathematics, and there was the best students at Brunel University got chosen to do a PhD at the University of Greenwich, which is where I went. That's where I met my husband, and it's because of my husband that I'm in Mauritius. So I don't want to say it, but before I met my husband, I did not know where Mauritius
It's
was.
okay. Let it up to people here.
And he told me about this place, and then we ended up getting married. And for personal reasons, I moved here. So I was working in a different space before
Yeah.
I wanted to come back to higher education.
Mm.
When I was reevaluating certain things at a certain point in my life, and then I really felt like I wanted to do more for
For the people,
impact
yeah.
and for the next generation, or for trying to really develop things on the island. And a good way to do that is through higher education,
Yeah.
through learning and trying to help others contribute back to society. So that's when I decided to join a university, and at the time Middlesex University was, for me, it was an absolute best fit.
Yeah, it still is. And if you don't mind me asking, so you were born in the UK?
Yes, I'm British. I'm
Okay.
British, but I was again a bit of a diversion. I was in a boarding school in India.
Oh.
So my parents were in the UK. They sent me to a boarding school in India to get the culture
Yeah.
and to get the values of an Eastern mindset.
Yeah.
Again, I thank my parents every single day for that decision.
And you must feel familiar with this culture here, right?
Absolutely. So that changed me. It changed my life
Yeah.
completely. And it really just helped ground me back to my roots. But, I think I'm a global person, and that's what I like the most about
Yeah.
myself, not to identify
As a
only
single culture.
with a single type of place or
Mm.
culture, but to be able to say Mauritius is my adopted home. I'm from India, and I'm very proudly British as well.
Yeah, that's great. So you did a master's in mathematics and a degree in mathematics, and you ended up teaching business.
So I'm teaching in the business school now, which is I'm looking after all the quantitative modules
So you still
So
handle
I
maths?
take my mathematical background with me. But I have to say my um, career also took a twist very recently, which is why I'm doing this. But before this, I was in education. So I started out on the foundation program um, and very quickly kind of moved into leadership at a program level and then leadership at the higher education level. So I was also handling portfolios of teaching and learning. I was handling portfolios of quality enhancement. Um, and I was also handling the academic development cross institutionally. So I was able to make quite a footprint
An impact.
in the campus, in
Yeah.
the institution, and also in the region. So I have some kind of
So,
expertise.
kind of what you were looking for in becoming a lecturer, you kind of was able to make it, right?
I do think so. I do think so. I think I was able to always find my place where I wanted to make that impact. So, yes, I do believe so.
And so that sounds like an impressive journey, and you've been deeply involved in higher education in Mauritius. I'd like to know, looking back, what achievement you feel or contribution you feel is most something you're most proud of.
Well, I think I want to go back and still say it's the journey and the um, the intent with which I started out was something which I was able to find my way to get there. The proudest thing I think is the impact, is that have, I feel, a very solid professional standing now in my areas. I am a recognized expert within the SADC region generally, not just only in Mauritius, but I've worked with Namibian counterparts, I've worked with South African counterparts. I've made influence in Seychelles as well. So there is quite a large sphere of impact and influence, and all through being able to do that, I can then also influence the kind of programs that these countries offer and the kind of quality that they are able to adhere to. So I think, yeah, probably that's what I would say.
And is there something you want to do that you were not able to do in terms of impact on students?
Yes, I mean, there's still so much that
Yeah.
still needs to be done. I think there is a lot that, I mean, my most passionate thing in my whole portfolio is academic development, which means that we are trying to really look at our offering as a whole ecosystem. So, what is it that the academics do? How do the professional service, and how do people like the Library and Learning Enhancement also contribute in the most effective way to make every learner's journey as rewarding as it could be? So, academic development is something that plays a big part of this. How do we make sure that we are preparing students in the best way possible? And when I say students, my students are actually lecturers. So my students, I mean, business is one thing I do, but my actual, 13 years of what I was doing at Middlesex is about training lecturers. So we offer a program, which I'm sure we'll get to later in the interview. We offer a program for lecturers to actually learn about how to teach effectively. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, sometimes I come into a classroom and I'll be observing a lecturer. So that's part of the role that we do, is to go and see if lecturers are doing things as well as they could do, or if there are things that we feel can be improved on, how to develop the academic side of what we do here.
I think it's a nice thing to see that we are at any level, but we are still learning and we're still being assessed. Yeah. And talking about students, well, most students nowadays are Gen Z, and talking for myself, and I think I can talk for all of us, we have a lot of expectation for higher education. From your experience, what do you think students value the most in learning today?
Well, I can answer that, I think, based not just on observation, but also based on evidence. Because when we look at what is it that students want, how do we understand these things? Well, we do that through listening to students and what they want. So all of those platforms that are there for the student voice, again, things like the Library and Learning Enhancement suite look into. So the program voice groups, and also apart from the LLE, there's also the student surveys that happen. So all of the evidence points to, for me, it points towards students really feeling like they own the learning process, because it's about what can we bring to them that's different than what they can learn with so much information that they have at their fingertips. They can go, my children are almost your age. My older one is almost your age, and he tells me, he can learn anything he wants from the MIT YouTube channel,
Yeah, yeah.
or the Harvard YouTube channel, and he's done a lot of learning himself that way. But he also says, and so do students here say, that it's the personal relevance. So what my job is to bring to life those kinds of things, to make that connection for the student and the learning, and how to make that applicable for every single student, so that it is a sense of relevance that you have when you come and you sit in the classroom. You feel like this is something that is relevant to you, that you can then go and take away for your next step that you have to do, whether that's the next year, whether you're planning for your master's, whether you're planning to work. How can you take all of this and connect it to what you have to do next? And I feel like that is what students want. And that's what comes across again and again through the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's that we want to be engaged. We don't want somebody to just come and read the slides, because the slides
Yeah.
are there on the they're there on the online platforms. So what you need is, what is it that helps you to make that connection with the material and connect that to what you want to do later.
And I'd like to know, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen academics have had to do to adapt to changing student expectations, but also to in response to changes in technology or to diversity?
So I feel the whole paradigm has shifted now. If we talk about diversity, for example, a few years ago we used to talk about diversity in terms only of it being almost like a deficit. There was this term called diversity deficit, which was about how do we plug the gaps in what the students are not really able to do. So if you talk about differently able students, or students with particular type of adjustments required. But that paradigm has shifted now to diversity gains. So it's really about understanding that every student has a diverse way of doing things, and how can we use that for best benefit. So what do we use to gain from every student? And that's a paradigm that I personally feel is a much stronger paradigm to help us all. And if we think about all of the types of things that students come to us with, and the world has changed so much, students all have different needs now. If I think of postgraduate students, all of them, most of them are working. And so we have to cater to people who are working full time. If I think of international students, we are thinking about people who have left their country, they've left their home, they're transitioning, they're having to deal with something completely new. If we think of local students, they might have caring responsibilities at home, or they might have different things. So there's so much that students are already facing as barriers to their learning. So that's, I think, the major shift, is that we have to realize that despite these barriers, the students are trying their best. So what is our responsibility here is to really just help and make that still happen.
And do you think, talking to for Mauritius, do you think there's a lack of help in our higher education?
I think that what I've seen, and I've worked, not worked, but I've had students come. My lecturers are, my students are lecturers from all of the universities across Mauritius. So I've gone in and done teaching observations. I've seen all of the other universities and higher education institutions here. So what I can say is Middlesex University Mauritius is very, very far in the advanced space here in terms of the help that's available, because we really look not just at the academic journey, but there's so much alongside that. There's well-being, there's counseling, there's marketing, there's admissions, there's LLE, of course, and there's Middlesex sits within a whole huge institution. So it's not just a campus in its own right. Mm-hmm. We have all of the support of, of other the campuses as well. So I think it's a really powerful offering that's happening here. But I think on the island as well, although there might not be an LLE, but there's definitely library services elsewhere. And there's a lot of good work that's happening elsewhere too. And I think the fact that we're a small island and people have to now almost raise the bar to compete with, with what we are doing. So it generally makes the level go up when these types of private branch campuses get established. I think that's the key learning.
And would you have an advice for students that have those struggles, like maybe some things like ADHD or anxiety for exam? Do you have an advice for them?
Absolutely. I think just don't, it's not a struggle. It's not a lone struggle for sure. There is so much, just acknowledge it and embrace it. It's, again, going back to that idea of diversity gains. Mm-hmm. There's so much that everybody has to offer. Mm-hmm. And just take what you have to offer, make that your strength.
Yeah. And to move on, you speak about moving towards learner-centered education. What does this look like in practice, inside and outside the classroom?
So I feel that's something that we need to understand as an academic or as anybody, as a staff member here. What is it that we can do for each individual student? So we are a human. The individual student is a human. How do we make certain adjustments as required? Students also they're not looking for anything more than just what their general expectations are. So it really is about understanding that flexibility that's required. It's about understanding that people want to work to get where they want to go. So nobody is looking for an easy ride. People want to earn the learning. They want to own the learning. They want the hard. They want to feel that they've achieved something. Thank you. So I think flexibility is important. I also feel a really key part of all of this is to create that sense of belonging. And that happens from both sides. I think it's important for the students, and I see that so well here. I mean, one of our absolute unique, I think, benefits of Mauritius campus is that beautiful mix of international and local students, and that's the strength of Middlesex University generally. Mm-hmm. But Mauritius campus, I think, embodies that beautifully. And I see that everywhere you walk, you see, communities, small communities, and that sense of belonging is really important. So outside the classroom as well as inside the classroom. For example, if a lecturer was to come to me and say, I'm having attendance issues, which is a common thing which happens, I would probably ask, what strategies are you using to create that sense of belonging within the classroom to make the student actually willing
to come
to
to class.
come because they don't want to miss what is happening, whether that's from peers, whether that's something that is from the academic, or beyond that as well. So these are the types of things. I think flexibility, sense of belonging, community, and it's a lot of it happens organically, but a lot of it happens strategically as well.
Yeah. And as you teach lecturers, do you what do you tell them to do as to enhance those flexibility and all that stuff?
So we go back, just like any other subject. There's a whole body of knowledge to support that. So even in academia and teaching and learning, there is a whole science of the scholarship of teaching and learning. So we go back to those types of things. What we do is we equip the lecturers with almost like a toolkit to say, and they have to be able to read the classroom. They have to be able to manage the classroom. It's not just a one size fits all situation. So there's a toolkit that's probably something that we try to help them understand. A lot of this is it's things that they are doing anyway. Once they start to understand the theories behind what works and when it works, then they can start to adapt more flexibly their strategies, their teaching strategies, and then the learning happens in a much more effective, enhanced way.
Yeah, and it's beneficial for both parties, right?
Absolutely.
Even for the lecturer or for the students.
Absolutely.
So it's very impressive to see how much work goes behind teaching and in making learning more student-centered. I love what you mentioned about flexibility and creating a sense of community, but how do you think services like the Library Learning Enhancement team in Middlesex supports this learner-centered approach in academia?
Thanks. I think, this is a really, really important part of the university. For me personally, it's almost like the LLE holds a key to the learning and the information. The sense of information literacy that a student needs to have is something that the LLE really, holds that's their portfolio, that's their mandate. So how do you try to help the students understand that? So the information literacy agenda is something that's very important. So all the types of things that we as academics lean on support services like the LLE for. So academic writing is something that is very key, and it's something that happens that you take away even after you leave a university. You will have to write reports as you graduate and you go into the workforce. You'll have to write reports. You'll have to write perhaps persuasive types of narratives where you're trying to sell something to a customer, or you're trying to write a report regarding somebody's mental health or something like that. So academic writing is something that's very important, which the LLE, I know, does a lot of work towards that. The idea of peer learning, the idea of having student learning ambassadors who really are there to break down some of those barriers in terms of learning that I talked about, because you might feel like you can relate to a peer for certain things in a better way. You might learn certain skills easier from somebody who can explain it not one generation apart, the program voice groups is a very key thing that is enabling the student agency. You have to be the agent to make change to your own experience, and this is how you do that. All of those things surrounding critical writing, critical learning, critical reading is absolutely key before you can get to the stage of critical writing. So again, how to go and look for good journal articles that are at the quality standards that you need to read to enhance your own understanding of what critical writing looks like. You have articles that you can read to understand that, and then you can practice through your years as a student. So there's so much that the LLE does, and it's looking at that as a whole and understanding that actually when you put all of that together, it's a really powerful um, piece of the actual, the wheels and the cogs
Yeah,
and things
it's
like that.
real life. You can apply it in real life.
Absolutely.
And we were talking about the foundation program earlier. I did the foundation program, and two of the modules that I absolutely loved doing was academic skills and critical thinking. And you already mentioned how important it is. But my question would be, do you think education in Mauritius overall could do a better job of teaching academic skills and critical thinking? Because personally, when talking for my A levels, I did not know what it was, and it's just here that I learned it. Do you feel there's something else to be made of it?
Well, I think that's a really pertinent question, I think, because what we see happening in Western education systems is that these things start to become embedded in the education
Yeah,
system much
definitely.
earlier on. But I think there's nothing as if it's too late. I think it's absolutely fine to be able to come to university and to be able to pick up on these things. So many education systems have that way of doing it. It's only when you come to university in many of the African countries or in Asian countries, these things start to come to the forefront at the university level. And so there is, I think it's great that you've understood that these play such an important role in that transition to higher education, and that you have a responsibility now. And I would urge you and say to you that you've done the foundation program, you're going into year one in September. You will be the leader in your classroom, and you
Yeah.
might have that responsibility because it doesn't stop with you. You have a responsibility to your peers as well. So your job will be to help your peers understand how do they use the learning environment to the
Yeah.
best of what they can. How will they use the LLE service to the best of what they can? How do they grapple with Harvard referencing
Yeah.
or Scholar and all of that.
APA.
Exactly.
I did not know there was so much referencing before coming to university. I was shocked.
And so your job will be to
Yeah.
help those who will come for the first time to
Yeah, for sure.
university.
Don't worry, guys. But yeah.
Yeah. So, when you mentioned peer learning and active learning in higher education, what makes these approaches so powerful?
Well, again, it's about grounding yourself in the learning process and taking ownership of your learning. So, the idea of being an autonomous learner is going to prepare you to be somebody autonomous later on as well in your life. And that's what you want to do, whether that's going into the workplace or whether that's doing, something else as well. You need to be responsible for not just your actions, but for what it is that you're going to output. And I think these things are really important lessons to learn in a safe space like a university. You're here, you can almost make mistakes in a way that is not going to have
Impact.
such a negative impact as if when you go out into the real world. So think of the university almost like this safe space where you can make mistakes and you can learn from them. You can learn from your peers, you can learn from guides like us, mentors, and people. So, the world is so full of big problems nowadays. It needs people to try to actually help in the solutions, not just create more problems. So, trying to look and see what can you contribute and what is it that you can do to actually help in a way that you're responsible.
I think it's beneficial for a student as well to teach another student. Maybe Sarah, you can talk about it. You weren't necessarily. Is when you told other student, did you make maybe retain stuff better?
So yes, definitely. As I have seen the impact on students, but also on myself, I do understand concepts better. I find it easier to organize things in my head because before you explain something to someone, there has to be a structure to it. So I find that it helped me a lot in my own learning and in my own assimilation in a way. So yeah, definitely it does
Yeah.
help.
And from an academic development perspective, how effective is feedback that you receive either from lecturers or students to develop academia and student progress?
Brilliant. Again, I was actually going to comment on what she said, and your question exactly helps me to do that. So, feedback helps in that metacognition process. So, it really helps a student understand what is it that it helps them reflect on their own learning. So, they're learning about their own learning through the tool of feedback. Obviously, it needs to be, it's a two-way thing. We can give feedback, but the student needs to take it in. They need to read it, first of all. I can tell you how many students just look at the mark. Don't worry at all about the
But
feedback.
that's actually something, well, personally, I enjoyed a lot receiving like individual feedback. That helped me a lot. So, guys, do read your feedback. And it's really, no, it genuinely helped me a lot. Just not having log and that's it.
So, an interesting thing about that is that you take on board the feedback, which is great. So, like I was saying, it helps with that metacognitive process because what I see happen more and more is that when students start to engage with feedback, they almost then can develop the skill of doing self assessments because they now understand what we are looking for or what makes a good piece of work. And then that helps if they really start to look at feedback, you can see the improvement assessment by assessment, level by level, year by year, because they take the metacognitive element into it.
I think one reason a lot of students don't look at feedback is maybe a fear of judgment that they have. What would you tell them regarding that? Maybe they feel anxious of getting bad feedback and feeling low about themselves.
Maybe it's a fear of criticism.
Yeah.
That's a great point, and it's something which I think academics sometimes lose sight of. But a lot of what we do is how to give effective feedback. When I'm teaching students, lecturers, a lot of there are theories around effective feedback and what that looks like from perspectives of students as well, perspectives of peers as well, and sometimes that is something that academics lose sight of. But again, I would say to the student that this is a safe space as far as possible. Don't hesitate to seek an appointment with the academic and find out more about that. And it's not criticism directed personally at anybody. It is really just to help you achieve your potential or to just show you what could be improved on. And more, what I see is that students then can do that effectively by themselves at a certain point. Like when you reach, let's say, your final year, or when you go to your level 7, it's called level 7 is masters for a reason. It shows your own mastery. You should be owning that metacognitive process to understand and be independent by that time, to really direct your own learning as well. So definitely not a criticism to the individual in any shape or form.
Do you think it's something that should be taught how to take feedback? Maybe some people take it as a personal critique.
Again, I think that's really interesting. And again, that highlights to me sometimes when I'm giving feedback to lecturers, where I then, when they come back and say something like that to me, So an example was a lecturer who was my student, who took this in a very, very nice way and came back to me and said, you know, I keep teaching my students, so now his students are, let's say, year one or year two students. I keep teaching my students about the growth mindset, which is this idea in education that you can change your mindset and you can grow and you can develop and you can become what you were lacking in earlier. And he says, when I sometimes read feedback, I apply that to myself and I say that even I need to have a growth mindset because now I can see what was missing in the things that I was doing. And I can try to see how I can then grow and develop myself. So it really is a 360-degree type of ecosystem, this whole learning agenda. It's not just a student who's in year one learning, it's the lecturer who's learning. And then through that, I'm learning. And then through me, I can take that back to committees and to and back to and then we make policies that can help students again, so it all kind of, there's a big feedback loop here.
I think feedback is definitely good. Feedback is definitely something really important because I think that's great that you teach lecturers how to give feedback because I can think of personal times where I got feedback which was given really rudely, and this made me feel bad about myself and lose confidence. But I think teaching lecturers to give good feedback is something very important. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think this highlights how teaching qualifications like the PGCHE it's become increasingly important. And why do you think formal recognition of teaching practice matters in higher education?
So, many people sometimes don't see the purpose of it. Sometimes it's a contractual obligation for us at Middlesex University that every lecturer needs to demonstrate their standing. So that's done through formal qualifications like this. There's a professional body that accredits this program, and that professional body is called Advanced HE, and there are membership, certain levels of membership of that program, of that body. So everybody who does a program like this, and if they graduate successfully to the end of this program, they become a fellow of the Advanced HE. So combined, the professional body recognition and the academic qualification that they get is almost like it's not just a stamp of approval or quality, but it's also a personal investment of that person that they want to be the best teacher that they can be, and they want to learn about how to do teaching and learning effectively in higher education. It's an institutional commitment as well, that we as an institution want all of our lecturers and academics to be of a certain standing. And this is benchmarked internationally to the UK and recognized globally. We have fellows, senior fellows. I'm a principal fellow, which is the highest level of that standing, across the world. So when I got my principal fellowship in Mauritius on work done in Mauritius, at the time it was about 2.5 years ago, me and the current higher education minister were the two people only in Mauritius to have this
So you could have been our minister.
By far, no.
Maybe for those who doesn't know what is the PGCE program, could you explain it?
Sure, thanks. Okay, so that is about, it's an academic program which is based on theories of things like designing a curriculum, teaching effectively, what does good learning look like, how do you design good assessments, how do you give good feedback, how do you then use evaluations to improve or to change or to understand what you do better? All of it is looked at through a very reflective lens. So it really is about enabling a person doing this program to understand the power of reflection and professional reflection. We actually call that reflection with an X. It's REFLEXION, because that's a much deeper level of reflection where you also include your peers into your reflection, you include the literature into your reflection, you include theory, you include established body of knowledge into your reflections. So it's not just anecdotal type of reflection. It's what we call professional practitioner research paradigm. So this is the type of program that we do, which is very important for us as a university.
Can you tell us more about the levels of fellowship there is? You were saying you were a principal fellow.
Yes, so there's a fellow, you can be, it's called FHEA, so you might have noticed your lecturers when they have the sign off in their emails, they write their name, then they have comma FHEA.
Yeah.
So that is on account of having done the program, they get
That
fellowship.
title. Yeah.
That title. There are, I think, 6 or 7 in the campus, so senior fellows. So it basically the difference between all of these is demonstrating your level of influence. So at a level of fellowship, you're really showing us that you are very good in your program and you have a good command of your program, your students in the program, and you have agency within that level. If you start to talk about senior fellows, so you might have noticed some of your lecturers have SFHEA next to their name in their email signatures. So the level of expertise and influence grows bigger. That circle is growing bigger now. So they might be showing command at a level at the campus. They're making changes and owning some type of mandate within the campus and really driving a particular agenda at the level of a whole campus or something like that, or even at the level of influencing 2 different campuses maybe. If you start to talk about principal fellows, which is the highest level, then you're really talking about influence at a national and international level. So, like I said, I do work in the SADC regions. I look at quality of programs in Namibia to make sure that they are of a specific quality. I look at somebody in the Seychelles came to campus to visit with me to ask about their quality assurance processes and teaching and learning. So it's really about, you can see that
It's about the level of impact you have.
the impact has grown higher and
Yeah.
higher.
Would you say it's if someone would want to become a lecturer, is it something mandatory they would have to go through?
It depends on their level of experience that they come with. So sometimes it's, a very, very experienced person will not have to go through this, but they could already come with a fellowship, with already being an FHEA. So, but as a general rule, if you're new or very early career academic, one of the things you would have to do is this program.
And to move on, we've seen quite a huge success in the PGCHE graduate in Mauritius. What does this tell us about between the link of professional development and professional progress?
Yes, exactly. So this is what we see a lot of. Like I said, it's not just Middlesex University Mauritius. We also offered that to other lecturers across the island, and I did see a lot of progress in terms of they could use, because it's a global program, they could use it for international mobility. I saw many students on the back of this program able to take jobs in in other countries. They might have moved to Canada, they might have moved to China at a associate professor level, or they might have gone to, many of them went back to the UK with different universities once they got the program. it's not just about the certificate or the fellowship, but it's the knowledge that they gain, and through the reflection, the development of themselves professionally, that they were then able to use for professional growth. At our own university, many of them will move from being an associate lecturer to a lecturer simply on the back of having got this qualification. A lot of the evidence that they use to put together the portfolio of professional development here, they can then use for promotion from lecturer to senior lecturer, for example.
So it's not really about the level of education. What I mean is by whether you have a degree or master's or a PhD, it's more about the level you are involved as a fellow.
No, you will need, so to even to apply to even get your job, you would need all of that. You would need your PhD and master's anyway just to get the job. This is almost like a second master's or a second postgraduate qualification. So you would definitely have all of your subject qualifications and your training. If a lecturer is teaching you in psychology, they definitely already have their master's in psychology. This is a secondary, because we are psychologists and educators, we're trying now to develop the education side of what they do.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
And legally as well, they have their whole law background and their legal profession to back them up. But this is them being a good educator in legal studies of the law and etc. So that's what we try to help
But
them.
it must be like long years to actually become a full-fledged lecturer then.
I mean, we call it lifelong learning, right?
Yeah.
It's a never-ending process to always improve, either in the side of the profession to keep up, because that's the other thing we always have to do. We have to be at the forefront of our subject. So a law lecturer will always need to be involved in the law and, the law profession. As well as a psychologist who's teaching, you will always need to be involved in the subject level, as well as the fact that they are teachers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So they have to, be able to be what we call a dual academic.
Yeah.
They have to be their subject expertise, but they have to be experts in teaching too, because without that, you're not going to get the right or the best experience.
And I think someone can be a good lawyer, an excellent lawyer, but not a good teacher.
There you go. There you go.
I'm not talking about you, so don't worry.
So, moving on to the next question. What role do libraries, learning development teams, or academic skills teams play in maintaining quality and standards in higher education?
They have a very big role to play, and I think here people really understand that. The LLE head of LLE was my student who did the PGCHE, is an FHEA. So it's about understanding that everybody has a role to play in developing the quality of what we do. The LLE plays a very big role, not just in terms of the quality processes, which they do, because the PVG is part of the quality processes, in fact, of the university. But it's also about understanding that through doing these things well, we can, it's not only about meeting the threshold of quality, it's about enhancing that. So what can we do to be even better than the standards that we need to maintain? So the LLE will come to enhance a lot of the learning that a student can be expected to do. The LLE will come to support the academic to do some of the things that we need to make sure our students can do. The LLE will have their own role to play through the Student Learning Ambassador Scheme, for example. So there's a big impact on quality that can come from a unit like this. Again, I think we're probably the only ones in the country to have a particular dedicated unit to do this particular type of mandate, which is, again, for me, a very powerful thing that this campus can offer.
And to hop on her question, what advice would you give students that hesitate to seek help in those areas, in like for support or academic skills services, that they feel it's not for them? What would you tell them?
Well, I really do feel and I do understand that, because I can see that I have a personal, connection with students like that, because I can see my children being in the same position. It takes guts, it does. It does take something to step up and say, I need help. But I think, again, just remember that we a particular campus, a smallest out of all of the 3 campuses that we have, and that intimacy is really something that I value so much. For me, there's no judgment. There's really it is such a safe place to grow. And I've seen so many students who've taken that step. And that's all it was, is just one step to really understand that I was scared for nothing. I just needed to take that step, and the fear goes away, because everything then kicks in. All of the systems kind of kick in, once you just take that first step. But it does take something, and that's one of the things I try to teach my lecturers is it is hard for students, and we need to recognize that. Sometimes a student knocks on your door, it took an immense amount of effort for them to actually come and knock on your door. If they email for support, please acknowledge quickly, because it could have been that it took them weeks of thinking through that email and taking that step to say, let me email. So I think it is something that we need to realize, that people do have needs. Everybody has needs. The needs are different. And it is about understanding. Sometimes it takes a lot for a student to reach out. But again, the community is so important. As students, you need to help your friends. You need to help your peers. And I saw that so much in the foundation program. That was one of my two of my happiest years as teaching on the foundation program, because I have so many stories of fellow students helping other students. And the journey is just upwards from there. It's such a pride, to see a student graduate who was a shell before, but finally really just blossomed, and from the help of their peers more than anything.
I think one reason when a student hesitated to ask for help, I think there's a lot of overthinking going on of what the lecturer might say, or what they might think of me, or even maybe not even the lecturer, or their peers.
Peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure. And I think,
how can you help with that? How can you both help with that?
I think what helped me with that was just not thinking about it at all. It's really like brute forcing, and just, okay, I need help on that, and there's no one else that can help it except my lecturer. I'm scared to do it, but I need to do it. And that might not work for some people, but it worked for me. And again, like you said, it's the first step, but it's also the highest step, I think. But once you do that first step, it really becomes much easier after. So make that first step, guys. Don't worry. What about you?
I think I've seen both sides of it. As a student at first in year 1, it was difficult for me to ask for help. But that's why as an SLA, I try to make it easy to by creating a safe space for students, eliminating judgment, making it feel like it's okay not to understand, because acknowledging not understanding is the first step to actually understanding. So I think definitely seeing both sides of the coin was important for me to learn how to do my role as an SLA.
And also, it's not just academics who you reach out to. The LLE is a great platform, a great, you know, a body. It's an element. It's a part of the whole campus life. The LLE is a great first step to reach out to if there's anything that you don't. If you don't understand a feedback from a lecturer, you can ask, you know, for more help.
Yeah, I think
It's true.
your friends as well is a lot of help. I'm lucky to have great friends on campus, so my friends help me a lot, and that's one advice I gave to the new foundation students: find good friends, and that will help you. And yeah, if you don't have friends, come to your lecturers, but
Yes.
they'll be your friends.
Yes, of course.
So, how do you think academic development and student support can evolve in the next few years?
So I think it has to respond to the way that the society is evolving as well. And that's what we've seen is happening. So understanding the kind of complexities that's happening in the society and trying to see how to best prepare our, you know, those who come to us to learn certain things, how to best prepare them so that they are able to help society and to just make things, you know, make a change in their own way in the world. All of these ideas, you know, sustainable living or sustainable work, trying to really think about what is it that you can contribute. So academic development, all of that just needs to think about the future of what's going to happen and how we can keep the best, give the best of us, help the students give the best of themselves. There's so many things that we've had to navigate recently, artificial intelligence and wars and so much that's happening. So I think development is always going to be almost reactive to what's happening in society. So we need to just always maintain our currency, maintain our relevance, try to help the students always feel like they are relevant. And one of the things I always tell my business management and accounting and finance students is every time I tell them every single week is to think about what we are doing. What was the topic we covered this week? And how is that applicable to something that we are reading about in the news? And that's something that people don't do. I've seen my students don't even know how to read the news anymore. I keep telling them, you must please pick up the paper or scroll on your phone, see the papers, see what's happening in the markets, see how that's influencing the you know, the fluctuations that are happening, the movements that are happening, and apply what you're learning to that, and see what would you do, what do you see happening in businesses, what do you see happening in financial firms, how is that explained by what you're reading in the paper and what you're learning in the classroom. If you were to go to an interview tomorrow, would you be able to demonstrate that you can apply your learning to actually what's happening? I always leave them with an exercise that stretches their learning. So I might be talking about interest rates in class. And then I'll tell them, okay, your homework is this, but this is to stretch you. Go and find out what is the LIBOR. And then they have to go, and so that's got nothing to do with the class. It's just something that is real world specific. And I can do that because I'm grounded in the subject as well. I know my business. I know how it applies to the real world. So, I think development is really, really important. LLE as well will have different ways of, the agenda is more difficult for the LLE because it's so it's across all the programs. It's not like I go in and I teach business management, I'm specific to business management, whereas LLE is having to cater across all of the different programs. So the fact that they bring in students from different programs really helps because you then become the expert in helping those who are learning in that specific field. So it's a big role in terms of development, but I think, again, I've said this before, very important role.
To go back on something you said, so what basically you do in class, you encourage your students to apply where you teach them on the real world. Do you think it's something that should be more normalized across every majors in psychology or law, etc.?
Yes, absolutely, and we do that through assessment. It doesn't have to be something that we do in the classroom. It's definitely done through the assessment because the Middlesex University procedures will make sure that assessments are authentic. So you might have noticed in your own assessments, in your modules, maybe some more than others, but they will be grounded in case studies or things that are really relevant to what you're learning that can be applied in the real world. So through the assessment exercise, this is something that we would normally do in any case. But yes, I do think it is a lecturer's responsibility to try to link what they're doing with the real world. Maybe a news article, maybe something about a marketing lecturer might be thinking about a particular marketing campaign that's going on. We're driving by, we're all seeing these big billboards. How do we, and I've seen that when I go into teaching observations, I see marketing lecturers actually taking current billboards as on their slide, critiquing that. So this is something that is, I think, done. I think you will recognize that in your own experiences.
And finally, if there's one message you want to say to students and staff to take away about learning, teaching, and support, what would it be?
So I believe in the power of the metaphor. I always say, again, something I tell my lecturer students a lot is think of a metaphor. How can this apply? And we use a lot of metaphors in the theories of teaching and learning, etc. So I think one message, probably the metaphor of going hiking. Sarah, we've done hiking ourselves. We scaled, what did we do, Le Mans together, I think. But the idea of all of that, the preparation required to actually do an assessment or a whole degree, for example, or what is it that you want to do. So the idea of preparation, the idea of actually starting to take the journey, okay? Maybe the route, it's not going to be a straight ascent to the top. You have to kind of go, you have to find your way, you have to follow the tracks, you have to see, you get lost a little bit, you come back, you find your way, you hit setbacks. We were locked, the doors with the gates were closed to us when we got to the bottom of Le Mans again. So there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be things that we have to be creative to find solutions. But it's that final part, isn't it? It's that final steep bit right at the top, most of the mountains, that you just have to be resilient. You have to
Push a bit more.
Push a bit. You have to get your frame of mind right. You have to lean on others. Somebody's helping you up. Somebody's pushing you from the back. So that sense of community, that sense of feeling safe. Till the end, you get on the top. Your view is completely different. Your mindset changes. You see things differently. You start to feel your place in the world. You start to feel your place. You're a small part, but you are there. You can make a big difference. So I think understanding that whole journey is important. We started with what was your journey. I think we can end with understanding the journey, enjoying the journey, and really just finding and understanding that this is a safe space. The university is a safe space. So just enjoy it. Don't feel inhibited by your own fears. Just find your way and you'll get to the top.
And I think that's a good way to see it, and something I think about a lot when I go through bad times. If there were no bad times, you wouldn't know when you were in the good times. So yeah, that's something to think about. And yeah.
I love what you said, and I loved your hiding. It was a very interesting and informative conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you a lot for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so honored really to be here. You really have a great way of conducting these. These are really influential, very good podcasts. So thanks for taking the time. You're all busy. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed
It was a
myself.
great
It was
honor.
an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and comment anything that resonated with you in this episode. And I'll take this opportunity to tell you that this is my last episode as a host. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I've enjoyed every second of being a host and taking part in this podcast initiative. I hope I was able to bring you some value, and I hope I was a good host.
You were.
Thanks. So I'm really happy to be handing this project over to our new host Joshua and to the next ones. So thank you so much for watching and for making this a very special project for me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!